Salute. What's going on? Nobody popped up. So I wonder how this go. Hey, Nola. Can you hear me? Hey, Nola. Salute, Nola. If you can hear me, put a one in the chat. What's going on? Good. How you doing, girl? Salute to you. I was waiting for some more people to come in and join the live, but I guess everybody's still over in Miss Parker, but I sent you a message on Instagram. You get it? I made you a mod too. Salute, girl. Trying to see if some more people gonna join the live. I don't know. It just I don't know. I can't remember. Wasn't nothing important though. Probably a little something. Nothing important. I wanted to come on a little bit and talk about this justice piece, but whew. What is a mod? You made me. You know how oh excuse me. You know how Shank have everybody in the chat, creating the chat, keeping everything under control. That's all. That's what a mod do. Salute, salute. Yeah, moderator. Hey brother King. Salute. Yeah, today I'm gonna talk about justice versus money. And I know a lot of times salute, salute, salute. Play that song, King, Lil G. Salute. Um, Basically, I wanted to come on here and talk about justice versus money. A lot of times we lose our loved ones, and I think most time people settle out of court for the money rather seeking justice. And I think because it's a drawn out process, um, they just prefer to have the money instead of seeking justice for their loved one. So I just want to come on tonight and just, you know, share my thoughts and opinion about about that. But let me read my copyright disclaimer. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use of purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Um, just over here sharing my opinion and having a conversation about justice. Oh, thank you. Oh, you like the glasses. Thank you. Appreciate that. But the bottom line is a lot of people don't like to fight for justice like they used to. Most time people would sell out of court just to get a monetary gift, or opposed to fighting for justice. But we know money can buy influence, but it cannot buy true justice. Money cannot pay for justice. Justice is supposed to be an impartial money offered distort to favor the wealthy. So put a one in the chat if you rather see justice for your loved one or accept money and means to closing out your case. Would you rather see justice or you rather have money? Bottom line. Because ain't nobody can pay me for losing a loved one, especially if I lost that person in a horrible way. I'd rather see justice. So if you feel like I feel, put a one in the chat. Exactly. Sometimes, they privatize profit over fairness. And fairness is not just. Justice must be based on truth and quality, not just a financial power. That's what justice is supposed to be based on. Not just somebody deciding to let money decide the outcome or the idea of justice becoming meaningless. I know when I lost my brother a couple years ago, my brother got murdered. And because of the simple fact we didn't have an idea of who murdered my brother, well, we had a clue. We went to seek justice for my brother's death. It was a long process. Took about 3 years. But we stuck it out because we wanted to see the person who took my brother out pay for the crime that he committed. Couldn't accept no money because of the fact I would never see my brother again. So what good would it be to have money in place of a lost loved one? So when it comes to seeking out justice, we have to stand on that. I remember in Trayvon Martin case, his mother and father, I think they got paid over $10 million of the death of their son. But Zillerman is still walking. So was that justice? It wasn't justice for us, but it could have been justice for them because they received a payout. Same thing happened in Kanika Jenkins' case. Teresa took money and she's still out her daughter. So when it comes to justice versus money, how can you be pleased if you're not seeking out justice for the one you lost? Money ain't gonna last always. So once the money run out, it's nothing else you can do about it. Because once you take a monetary gift for the placement of justice, you cannot further push any legal actions against the person who took your loved one out. That case will be closed because you accepted the gift. So I'm thinking in all these cases that we got going across YouTube with all these families, with all these mothers taking their kids out, or allowing their boyfriends to take their kids out, or doing all the stuff they doing that they're not seeking real justice for their children. I think it's a problem in our society that we have become so consumed with money that we don't even focus on the real problem or what is the real issue. Seeking out justice for our loved ones. Doing what's right for our loved ones. Living right to do the right thing. There's a lot going on in our country, in our cities, in the world around us. And to me, it seems like nobody don't care like they used to care. It's too much injustice going on. But who cares? Every day I pray that our world would change. That our circumstances would change. Because we're dealing with a lot of monsters out here. And I felt the need to at least try to do something to change what I see. I want change in our country. I want to see us do better. And the only way I could do something about that is be the change I want to see. That's what I'm doing. Being the change that I would love to see. Because right now there's too much going on. And I'm quite sure God is very upset with how the world is turning out today. I know he's upset because it's not what he planned for our life. I know he's upset because there's a lot of destruction going on and nobody seems to care. We used to have foot soldiers on the ground. I don't see that no more. Nobody wants to go out. Nobody wants to get their hands dirty. Nobody wants to get involved. Nobody wants to make our country a better place to live. Everybody busy doing what they doing and don't have time to try to clean up what's going on in our country. It's sad that we come to this, but I know it's nothing new under the sun. We're living in a world of destruction. And I also believe it's going to get worse before it gets better. But I also believe we can change if we want to. We can change the things around us if we make a change within ourselves. I believe we can do whatever we put our mind to if we stay to it. So, when it comes to justice, money cannot decide that. Money cannot decide the outcome of your case. True justice demands a level playing field, not to pay to play structure. Real fairness requires that no one get better treatment because they can't afford it. Society that allows money to corrupt justice breeds distrust and instability. When people lose faith in fairness, unrest and chronic can grow, they give up on the system. Justice must serve the people, not the highest bidder. People trust in courts and laws and depend on independence from financial influence. So, and money twists the law. We know that. money is the weapon for the rich. Justice was never meant to be sold. You can't sell justice. I mean, come on, you can't even buy your freedom. But the truth can't, because the system is rigged. The courtrooms always favor the highest bidder. That's not justice. That's extortion. The rich don't fear the law, they hire it. How about that? No one show how to buy their rights. No one should lose them because they broke. Justice that bend to money breaks everything else. Faith, fairness, and the future. So when it comes to, seeking out real justice, you gotta be diligent. You gotta push forth. You gotta stand in your truth. You gotta be capable to, do the things that you need so you can get the justice that you deserve. In this world ruled by money, the scales of justice are outweighed with gold. True justice does not speak the language of wealth. It speaks the language of humanity. A courtroom guarded gold still crumbles without truth. The poor man cry for justice should not drown out by the rich man's coin. Justice must stand blind, or she will fall blind. So how y'all feel about it? Would you accept money over justice? If one of your relatives got murdered, would you seek out justice for them? Or would you accept a payoff? Would you accept a payoff imposed of their justice? Or would you really work at trying to get justice for a loved one you just lost? What would you do? Would you stand there and say, okay, I could use some money? I could do more with money? Or would you stand in the gap for getting justice for your loved one? Put in the chat, what would you do? Would you accept money or you accept justice? I want to hear from you. What it's going to be? I want to know, what would you do in a case like that? Do you have your priorities in order? Would you carry it out to the fullest? Or would you just fold? I came up with these things about justice. I'm going to play this video. And I want y'all to hear this story of this little girl. And what happened in her situation. And how it came about.
Is is one of the most horrific we have ever covered, and it involves a young child. I can't even begin to think that a human being is capable of doing such unimaginable things to a little girl in such a brutal fashion, day after day after day. If you are faint of heart, I suggest you skip this one. I'm not even kidding. Teslin Elizabeth O'Call was born in Ontario, California on June 8, 1994 to parents Stella Ann Kaiser and Jason Adam O'Call. She was the couple's second child. Their first was a boy named Jason, who was named after his father. Teslin loved her big brother, who was described as her best friend. Teslin had blue eyes and blonde hair cut into a bob with short bangs framing her face. Her grandfather, Ken O'Call, said she was a sweet baby who grew into a smiling and loving toddler. Her aunt said that she was wonderful. She loved life. She loved music. She loved animals. Many relatives mentioned her love of all sorts of animals, from horses to dogs, cats, and bugs. Whenever she found a bug, her grandfather said she had to show it off to everyone in the house. She liked dolls, drawing, playing in the tub with her bath toys, and her favorite toy was a truck. Her uncle said she was always happy when they took her to the park, and she loved being on the swings. Pictures taken in December of 1996 show Teslin dressed up to celebrate Christmas in bright red tights, a green and red plaid skirt, and a white shirt. In one photo, she holds up a candy cane and looks at someone behind the camera as if she was showing off a prize. Other photos taken that day show her enjoying her candy treat.
Teslin's mother, Stella, had a difficult childhood. She had a twin brother named Billy, along with two older brothers and an older sister. She described her father as a controlling man with a violent temper and said she was a victim of his physical mistreatment. Her twin remembered their childhood a little differently, however. He said he personally didn't see his sister get hurt, but said his father was a very strict parent who was tough on his children. Stella was about 13 years old. She and her mother were in the house when her father removed himself from the earth with a gun. Billy was outside that day and he recalled hearing the gunshot.
Nola, you still in the chat? Nola, you still here? I was trying to wait for some more people to come in, but I was going to finish this a little later. You still here?
Said Stella and his mother ran out of the house screaming. A kind of a sudden, violent death would be a traumatic event for anybody, but even more difficult for a young teen. For the next few years, she acted out by smoking, drinking, experimenting with drugs, and running around causing trouble. She used crystal for the first time when she was 14 years old. She started dating Jason Adam O'Call and was soon pregnant. She was 16 when Jason Jr. was born. Her boyfriend was 17. She moved in with his family in Victorville, California, and lived with them on and off over the next several years. 2 years afterwards, when Stella was 18, Teslin was born. Stella continued to live with Jason and his family, but she wasn't happy with her life there. Jason's father described her as a party girl who was immature and liked making Jason jealous, sometimes even encouraging Jason to fight with other men over her. Jason went back to school, graduated, and got a good job as a steel worker to take care of his family, but Stella wasn't ready to grow up and give up the party life.
Stella's older sister lived in Oregon, and when her twin brother moved there, she decided that she also wanted a fresh start. In mid-1996, she moved herself and both children to Springfield, Oregon. Jason's father said she saw the kids as her meal ticket because Jason sent money to Stella for their care. Not much is known about her first few months in Oregon, but life as a single mom wasn't easy. She struggled to take care of her son, who was almost 5 years old by this time, and she was often impatient with him. Though the agency never released any records, her twins said that Oregon's DHS had gotten involved, and Stella was required to take parenting classes. At Christmas that year, she and the children visited Jason and his family in California. When Stella lived there, they said that she had been caring and attentive and a good mother to the children. But when she and the kids arrived at the bus station after living in Oregon, the family saw the first signs of neglect. Despite the cold weather, both children were barefoot. The visit lasted 6 weeks, and over that time, Jason's family saw Stella treat her son harshly. She spanked him, pushed him, slapped him, and yanked him around by his arm. She told Jason's father, "I just can't handle the boy no more." Stella treated Teslin kindly, though, and seemed to be able to take care of her.
Why is child abuse is so on a rise this time around? Why is child abuse? I mean, I know it's child abuse everywhere, and it's been and parents and guardians and loved one has been abusing children for a long time. But why is this on such a high right now? Why is so much anger and torture towards children? I just don't understand that. Why?
Jason's father said she'd never shown any tendency to be abusive toward the baby. Concerned for the 5-year-old's safety, the family convinced her to leave Jason behind when she went back to Oregon, but they let her take Teslin with her.
After her return to Oregon, Stella met Jesse Caleb Compton, who was newly single for all of the worst reasons one could imagine. Starting in July of 1996, police were called 6 times to this apartment he shared with his girlfriend and their 2-year-old daughter because of CA and DV. His girlfriend left for a little bit, but soon let him move in again. She was reported to DHS, and their daughter was taken away until the mother could prove Jesse wasn't allowed any contact with her. Realizing that she needed to protect her little girl, the girlfriend finally found the courage to end the relationship, kick him out of her home and her life for good. This left Jesse free to make another woman miserable. He found Stella. Soon after they met, she and Teslin moved into his dirty and smelly bachelor apartment in Springfield. The fence behind his unit and the walls inside were marked by a number of holes because Jesse was in the habit of throwing knives and punching the walls when he got angry. Most mothers would want to keep their children far away from a place like that, but Stella was drawn to it. She was a party girl, and Jesse liked to party as well. He was known for throwing some drug parties featuring lots of crystal and lots of drinking. Sometimes these parties would not stop for several days at a time. He liked to smoke his crystal by melting it with a small propane torch. As a party trick, he would sometimes hold the torch to his own hand, showing off how much pain he could withstand. Stella let Jesse take over Teslin's discipline. She would leave the girl alone with him while she attended her parenting classes. Because of the parties, a number of people were around to see Jesse's interactions with Teslin. Jesse always seemed to be angry with her. He always called her names, slapped the toddler's face, made her stand in the corner for hours on end. He smacked her with a wooden spoon, a spatula, and a belt. He was seen dragging her around by the hair and often forced her to take cold baths and showers. Once, when Jesse angrily threw a knife across the room, it almost hit Teslin, missing her head by mere inches. One witness saw him pouring a beer down her throat until she gagged. Another saw him beating her with a belt to make her go to sleep. When the woman asked Stella if they should stop him, Stella simply said, "Just let him take care of that." Witnesses also saw Stella slapping Teslin on the bottom with her hand. They said she didn't feed the toddler regularly and sometimes pulled her hair or yanked her by the arm. As a reminder, this is a 2-year-old girl. The neighbors in the apartment complex often heard shouts, screams, and thumps coming from Jesse's apartment. They saw Teslin outside. She was covered from head to toe in long pants and long-sleeve shirts. This is the middle of summer. When one neighbor threatened to report the CA to the police, Jesse threatened to kill the man and his girlfriend as well if he did.
After a few months, witnesses know.
I just don't understand what can a baby can do. What can a baby do that is so bad to be treated like an animal? What in the world can a baby do that's so bad that can be treated the way these people treat them? I just don't understand it at all, period. Ain't no child on this earth that I believe can do something that is so bad to be treated like an animal. Be treated like they don't have no life. Be treated like they nothing. I don't understand it.
no longer saw Teslin during the parties, but they could still hear her. Jesse kept her in the bedroom. Only he was allowed to go in, and when he came out, they would hear her crying for hours. No one was allowed in to comfort her or to see what he had done to her. The reprehensible part of this story is the number of people who knew Teslin was in trouble but never got any help for her. Some might have been afraid of Jesse, but they could have made an anonymous call. Many likely were more concerned that their source of crystal would dry up if they reported what they saw. And without a report explaining the severity of the situation, the few people who tried to get her help were unsuccessful. One unnamed member of Stella's family reached out to Teslin's father in California. She said Stella was neglecting her daughter and offered to arrange for the toddler to attend a birthday party. In this plan, Jason would have essentially kidnapped Teslin and taken her back to California. Unaware of Teslin's dangerous living situation, Jason declined and instead hired an attorney to try to get custody legally.
Though no witnesses contacted authorities, someone told Stella's mother and twin brother that Jesse was hurting her and Teslin. The anonymous person said that Billy needed to do something, so Billy went over to the apartment with a few friends to check on his sister and niece. When they got there, Jesse had nailed the front door closed and would not talk to him. Billy contacted the police, and a sergeant and several officers responded to his call. Jesse told the officers that he had nailed the door shut because he was afraid of Billy. The officers asked Billy to leave, saying he was escalating the situation. The officers were there. A neighbor came out of her apartment, told the officers they needed to go in and get that little girl. Somehow, the authorities also missed the severity of the situation. Stella told them she was unhurt and that everything was fine. One officer broke down a couple of boards on the backyard fence and shined his flashlight into a rear window. He saw Teslin on the couch covered with a blanket and waved at her. She waved back. He decided that she was fine and concluded this odd welfare check. The whole visit...
Another point I want to make. I don't understand when cops are called to the house to investigate child abuse. Why they always take the word of the parent or the person that's over the child? Why they always take they word? Why they can't investigate and really see if that child has been abused? If that child of age can talk, why can't they pull that child out and have a talk with them? Most time, in many cases, they brainwash the kids or threaten the kids or say something to harm the kids if the kids was to talk. I think some of these police officers should have a spirit of discern where they could discern when something's really wrong with these children. Because I believe a lot of kids can be saved if a cop really can discern if something's really going on with that child. The child ain't really got to say nothing. You can just watch the body language. Sometimes the body language will tell it all. But sometimes they don't even look into that either.
Was finished in half an hour. Had they entered the apartment, even a cursory examination of the toddler would have shown ligature marks on her wrists and ankles, bruising all over her body, and cigarette burns on her legs. In their final mistake, the cops never filed a report with DHS, even though state law requires them to do so in any case involving reports of CA. Not only that, Jesse was already forbidden from seeing his 2-year-old daughter because of CA. If they had filed a report, the agency would have been able to take Teslin into custody immediately, but instead, they sent her Uncle Billy home and left her with her tormentor.
1 week later, on June 13th, Stella and Jesse left Teslin tied up in the bedroom while they partied. Sometime between midnight and 2 a.m. on the 14th, they came back to find her blue and limp. Jesse cut her bindings. Instead of calling an ambulance or the fire station staffed with paramedics that was located right across the street from the apartment complex, he attempted to revive her on his own.
Salute, Hassan. Salute. Salute, Shell. Salute to the chat. How everybody doing? I'm glad y'all could pull up Hussein, I'm doing well. Doing good. Trying to keep on with these lives. Trying to, oh no. I'm just trying to bring up my channel. So yeah, I'm doing the story. I was talking about justice versus money. And then I came across, the story about this child. And it's sad because we on an all-time high with child abuse, and it's crazy. I just don't understand it. But this little girl was tortured by the people she was with, and she only 2 years old.
PR didn't work. He hit her several times and splashed her with cold water. In some sort of crystal-fueled Frankenstein craziness, he cut the cord off a lamp, plugged it into the wall, and used the frayed end to try to shock her back to life. But Teslin was gone. He and Stella decided to leave her in the bedroom while they tried to figure out what to do. They knew that Teslin had so many severe injuries that they'd go to jail if anyone saw what they did to her. So they decided to bury her. Jesse called his 18-year-old sister Lacey and asked her to come to the apartment. Jesse and Stella put Teslin in a laundry basket, loaded her in a car, and Lacey drove to a wooded area about an hour away near Sweet Home, Oregon. They buried the toddler there in a shallow grave. Now back at the apartment, the couple put all of Teslin's clothes and any other evidence that they could find into 2 trash bags and threw it all into the apartment building's dumpster.
Witnesses that saw them in the days after, so they acted like they were on their honeymoon. They were not fighting as much as they usually did and seemed happy and affectionate. They talked about wanting to move out of town and about their plans to have a baby boy together. When anyone asked about Teslin, they said she was with a babysitter or visiting Stella's aunt. But their lovey-dovey, child-free vacation was short-lived. 2 days later, Lacey, overcome by guilt and grief, confessed to Springfield police. She told them what she had seen, where she had driven. Following her directions down a remote logging road, cops found and unearthed Teslin's grave on June 17th. Buried with her, they found a blue braided belt, a piece of cloth torn from a curtain, a strip of gray cloth, and a woman's ring. Police searched their apartment and the complex for evidence. They found trash bags and easily linked them to the couple. They had thrown away the cut electrical cord, but left the lamp with the matching end in their apartment. They threw away all the ropes and knotted cloth they used to tie Teslin up, and also tossed in a handmade Mother's Day card that the toddler had made for her. Some of the knotted cloth and rope they threw away matched items recovered from Teslin's grave. Strands of the toddler's blonde hair were found caught in the knots. Inside the apartment, investigators found the propane torch that Jesse was so fond of. They found a pair of pliers covered with burn residue, multiple bottles of rubbing alcohol, and more strips of knotted white cloth. The significance of some of this evidence would not be clear until after Teslin's autopsy was completed. Captain Jerry Smith, the Springfield officer in charge of the investigation, said, "This is the most severe case of CA that we've ever seen. This kid was literally tortured."
In his interview with police, Jesse tried to say that some of Teslin's most serious wounds were accidentally caused. He said he spanked her a little too hard and broke the skin. When the skin got infected, he and Stella poured rubbing alcohol in it, and he blamed the rubbing alcohol for her burns. He admitted he didn't get any medical treatment for the little girl, even though she was only steps away from the fire station staffed with paramedics. He also never asked his mother for advice or help, even though she was a nurse. Stella also admitted that she didn't get any medical help for Teslin. She told police she was aware of what was going on, but didn't get help because, according to Stella, "I didn't want them to find out what Jesse had done." When police asked if Stella realized Teslin could die from her mistreatment, Stella said, "I feared there was a possibility it could happen if it didn't stop. I would have gotten out of there before then." Though that might have been her intent, Stella didn't get out before the worst had happened. She wasn't even trying to get out. Neighbors reported that in the days before Teslin's death, she was talking about going back to California and bringing her son back to Oregon.
The same day Teslin was found, June 17th, Stella and Jesse were arrested for her murder. He was charged with aggravated murder, 6 counts of murder by abuse, 2 counts of first-degree penetration, and abuse of a corpse. Though prosecutors believe Jesse inflicted most of these injuries, they claims Stella knew about it, and she sometimes even tied Teslin up herself. She also was charged with aggravated murder. After about a month in prison, Jesse hatched an escape plan. He wrote his idea out on paper, including details about how they should incapacitate the prison guard and use knotted bed sheets to crawl out the window. Then he gave it to another inmate. That inmate handed over the handwritten plan to the guards, and Jesse was given a 60-day stay in solitary confinement. He was charged and found guilty of an escape attempt, sentenced to over 2 years for that, before his murder trial even began.
The murder trial started on October 19th, 1998, and was presided over by...
See, here we go again, seeking justice for our youngins, for our loved ones. Now he got caught and went to jail, so now he's trying to escape. How crazy is that? After he tortured that baby. Sometimes I feel like some people don't deserve kids at all. You got people out here who want kids, but can't have kids. Then you got people out who have kids that don't want kids, and they delete their kids. Like, if you didn't want no kid, you shouldn't have had them. Nobody deserves to take a child's life, period. Why? It's crazy how these people is out here doing what they doing to children. I'm holding my breath for this because, I lost a child, and that's not no good feeling. But I didn't lose a child due to anything heinous or hurtful or whatever. My child died in natural causes, which still hurts, period. But I just don't understand it.
Wayne County Circuit Judge Lyle Vellier. In his opening statement, Assistant DA Robert Gorham apologized to the jury for the testimony and evidence they would have to evaluate. He said, "I'm sorry I have to tell you about these things. You must face the reality of this case." He described Teslin's final months to the jury. Sometime in the month or two before her death, Jessie had broken 4 vertebrae in her back. After that injury, he ramped up his torture. He beat, essayed, and starved her. He repeatedly tied her up. He burned her with cigarettes in his propane torch. He stabbed her with a fork. On multiple occasions, he and Stella poured rubbing alcohol into her open wounds. Assistant DA Gorham said, "There are 64 different talking points I have written down on the autopsy report. There are more injuries than that. She has an injury on every part of her body." He explained that during the first 2 weeks of June 1997, Stella and Jessie tied up Teslin up to 10 to 15 separate occasions, sometimes leaving her that way for 10 hours at a time. They bound her with her hands and feet up above her head and shoulders. They secured her with knotted ropes. Sometimes her hair got caught in the knots and ripped out. That is how she spent her 3rd birthday on June 8th, tied up and tortured. The assistant DA called Jessie's assault of the toddler merciless. While she was tied up, on at least 2 occasions, Jessie penetrated her private parts with an object. He also burned them. While Jessie claimed those burns were caused by the rubbing alcohol, evidence of the trial showed he used his propane torch to inflict those injuries. Sometime on her last day, he hit her on the head so hard it bruised her brain. He punched or stomped on her, causing internal injuries, and he scraped, bruised, and punctured the skin on her belly with a fork. Some reports at the time stated that the medical examiner cried during the testimony. Graphic photos of Teslin's injuries were shown to the courtroom. She was bruised all over her body. She had several hundred electrical burn marks from Jessie's attempt to revive her with a lamp cord. Her wrists and ankles had been rubbed raw from the repeated binding. Her back was broken in 4 places, and her private parts had been...
If this ain't the most crazy, sickening thing that you ever heard in your life, I don't know what is. This was a baby. A 3-year-old child that went through this pure hell because of some sick individuals. And sometimes I truly believe people get pleasure out of pain. People love to see people in pain. It's a pleasure to them to watch somebody in pure agony and pure pain. They gets off. This is nothing but a narcissist that gets off on pain. Lord.
Violated. She had infected and unhealed blisters all over her body. She had what was described as a gaping wound on her back caused by the propane torch. The toxicology report showed a large amount of isopropyl alcohol in her system, alcohol she had absorbed through her many open wounds. Internally, her brain and other internal organs were bruised, and her liver and one of her kidneys had ruptured. She was bleeding internally. She also suffered from septic shock and fluid loss from her multiple third-degree burns. The medical examiner listed her cause of death as battered child syndrome and said she died of shock caused by her many injuries.
In his closing statements, the defense attorney tried to argue that Jessie hadn't deliberately killed the girl, said her death was the result of inappropriate, misguided medical care. If the burns had not been caused by the rubbing alcohol, lawyer argued they could have been caused by overly hot bath water accidentally used to clean the toddler. And even if his client had caused Tesla's death, he argued that Jessie would not have had a reasonable expectation that her death would follow.
In response to the defense's closing argument, the prosecutor asked the jury to imagine Teslin's final days in detail. He spoke in plain language about the truly horrific events. It was a compelling and convincing argument, but we will warn you, it is not easy to listen to. It is probably arguably worse than the autopsy testimony. Here's what he said.
Deliberately means a state of mind that examines and considers the contemplated act and whether that act should or shouldn't be done. Deliberation is present if the thinking is done in a cool mental state under such circumstances and for such a period of time as to permit a careful weighing of the proposed decision. I want you to, unfortunately, I am going to draw you back a little bit to what was going on in that home the last few days of Teslin's life. What we know pretty clearly is there was a violent blow, at least to her back, and perhaps a violent blow to her abdomen that caused internal bleeding. We know she was essayed as she was vaginally penetrated within the last couple days of her life. We know the night she died, she was tied up with her legs up over her head. We know she had vomited. By all accounts, the abdominal bleeding was apparently causing her some distress. And we know, and think logically, the defendant was well aware that the child was in some severe distress. And that alone might be enough for deliberation, but I want you to think about the condition that this little girl was in when those terrible injuries in and of themselves were inflicted on her. You can look at the pictures and see that the labia is essentially burned off. And whether or not it is burned off by boiling water poured over her area when she was tied up, or whether or not it's burned off by a propane torch, doesn't really matter. When Jessie is essaying her, he is looking at the full sight, sound, smell package of that child. She must have begged for mercy. She must have expressed the terrible pain she felt, and he went on anyway. I guess she was probably crying when he stomped on her back. And think about what he was stomping on. A little girl, 31 pounds, damaged almost beyond repair, beaten repeatedly, fed occasionally, tied up, essayed, burned with cigarettes for weeks, even months. Did he deliberately do those acts? What other word would you put with it? He extremely deliberately did those acts. He knew exactly what he was doing. Was it reasonable for him to
I think this disgusting, trifling, low-life monster need to be put to death. He don't have no heart. He don't have no soul. I think he need to just be put under the jail. He need to... No, I think he need his life taken away from him. I think... Honestly, I think The way these people commit these crimes against each other, against somebody, I think they should get the same treatment they gave out. I think they should get the same thing that they dished out. So they can feel the pain that this person went through. That they can feel the hurt, agony. Jesus Christ. I think he deserved everything that he done to that girl be done to him. The Bible says, do unto me as you do unto others. I think he deserved the same treatment. No more, no less. Because this is a baby. This is a child. He is a very sick individual, and the mother is just as sick as well to allow him to do these things to her child. I just can't wrap my mind around these cases sometimes and how they treat these kids. And this is probably one of the reasons why I didn't like to cover stories on kids, because of my emotions.
Expect her to die? Could she survive another week in this household? Would she have lived another week? Ask yourself that. Probably not. Would she have lived another month? No. Was he going to kill her one day or another? Think about what she must have felt in the bedroom, internally bleeding, tied up while her mother and Jesse partied in the other room. What a terrible, torturous, brutal way to die. It would be terrible for all of us, for adults. But for a little girl who just turned 3 years old the week before, it must have been much more terrifying, much more hard to understand. Were these acts deliberate? Absolutely.
After hearing this part of the closing statement, one of the jurors began to cry uncontrollably, repeatedly, saying, God, that...
Salute, Cobain. Hey, Perk. Hey, baby girl. How you doing? Salute. Welcome to my channel. I'm covering this story. Hey, Sharon. Salute to you. This is a heartbreaking story of a child. 3 years old. She had 2 meth heads as parents and how they tortured this baby. Earlier, I spoke on justice versus money. Are people really seeking out justice for their babies?
Poor baby.
The defense moved for a mistrial, accusing Assistant DA Gorham of inflaming the jury. Judge Vellier denied the mistrial and replaced the crying juror with one of 4 alternates. Jesse, thankfully, was found guilty on all counts. November 5th, the penalty phase of his trial began. The jury deliberated for 4 hours before returning with a death sentence. Teslin's grandfather, Ken, thanked the jury, saying, they had the hardest job in the world. They just took somebody's life, but he deserved it. This is exactly what we came to Oregon for. Jesse appealed his death sentence multiple times. Last appeal started in 2003 and didn't finish until 2012, when it was denied. Stella's first trial began in January of '99 and was presided over by Judge Pierre Van Rysselberg. She was also charged with aggravated murder for her role in Teslin's death. During the trial, Stella often cried when evidence of her daughter's terrible injuries was shown. Much of her defense centered around her mental stability. The defense's expert witness testified that Stella suffered from PTSD and personality disorders caused by childhood CA and trauma from witnessing her father's death. Psychologists said her mental issues and drug addiction made her an easy mark for a monster like Jesse. At the trial, Stella claimed she hadn't seen her daughter for the last 2 weeks, but videotaped statements she made to police contradicted that claim. Her sister Karen spoke in her defense. She said Stella had always appeared to be a good mother who never even spanked her kids. Her sister, her mother, and another female relative all testified they had given Teslin a bath about 1 month before her death and saw no injuries on the toddler. This was contradicted by medical evidence that claimed some of her burns had occurred as much as 8 weeks prior. In his closing arguments, Assistant DA Gorham told the jury that Stella knew enough about right from wrong to try to save herself from what she did. He pointed out that she made sure to dress Teslin in long sleeves and pants anytime she was outside and lied to police when they could have helped her. He said, "You should look at her ability to make choices. The choices she made to protect her child, the choices she made to protect herself. She aided Jesse Compton in torturing that child to death. The jury deliberated for almost 2 days, but couldn't come to an agreement. One jury member didn't think she was guilty of aggravated murder. In normal circumstances, the jury would have considered lesser charges, but they weren't allowed to because of a law that had been passed by the Oregon legislature the year before. Without the unanimous vote needed to find her guilty, and also without 2 votes needed to find her not guilty, the jury was hung and the judge declared a mistrial. Her second trial started on April 23rd and concluded 6 days later. She was found guilty of all counts, including aggravated murder, murder by neglect, and abuse of a corpse. On May 7th, she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She appealed and her conviction was affirmed in July of 1999. She is currently serving her time at the Coffee Creek Correctional Institute in Wilsonville, Oregon, where she goes by the name Stella Singing Crow.
In December of 2022, Oregon Governor Kate Brown commuted Jesse's death sentence, along with 16 other death row inmates. She said the commutation had nothing to do with the inmates' behavior, their attempts at rehabilitation, or whether they deserved forgiveness. Instead, she said it reflects the recognition that death penalty is immoral. It is an irreversible punishment that does not allow for correction. It is wasteful of taxpayer dollars, does not make communities safer, and cannot and never has been administered fairly and equitably. Instead of facing death, Jesse will now face life in prison. There had already been a long moratorium on the death penalty in Oregon, and even when it was active, only 2 people had been executed since 1984. The governor acknowledged the stress this placed on the victims' families, saying, "I also recognize the pain and uncertainty victims experience as they wait for decades while individuals sit on death row. My hope is that this commutation will bring us a significant step closer to finality in these cases." In other words, the families at least know to stop waiting now. Jesse is currently serving his time at Two Rivers Correctional Institution in Umatilla, Oregon. Let me know what you think about that in the comment section down below. As for me, I really hope his fellow inmates finish the job.
See, would you take justice over money? That was my topic for today. I'm glad that little girl got the justice that she deserved because that was a heinous crime. And they should serve life in prisons without the possibility of parole. That's justice to me. Ain't no amount of money can pay to get that baby's life back. That baby ain't coming back. That baby cannot live out her life. So again, justice versus money. I would stick with the justice because I believe a person should go through what they need to go through when they take somebody's life, especially a child. So I pray and hope that nothing happens to none of your loved ones or even you where they have to decide whether they're going to take justice over money. In the end, we win. Justice wins all the time. So thank you for pulling up. Thank you for tuning in. And hopefully I catch you guys on the next one. Stay blessed. Keep your head up. Until we meet again. Peace.